How's it going, everybody? Jeff Slakey from iFiber One, run the Daybreak Show. And throughout the course of the last couple weeks and through October, we're going to be focusing a lot on the Mason County Elections Department. They're in a new, the Elections Department in its own entrance at 411 North 5th Street. It's in the back of the building to allow for a little more access because of COVID and all that's been going on. We've talked a little bit about being vote ready. We've talked a little bit about finding out where your ballots go from mailing out to you and then returning back to one of the 10 ballot drop-offs around Mason County. Today we're talking with Mason County Auditor Paddy McGuire, also still Fina here from the Elections Department, and we're going to kind of go over misconceptions. Paddy, how are you?
Excellent, thank you.
Good to see you here. Fina as well. We've talked a lot about just elections in general, and this is certainly an unknown election this year. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts with COVID and just the fact that it's a presidential election. There's a lot happening. States across the nation are kind of learning how to become a mail-in ballot states.
Exactly.
Washington has, in some form or another, had mail-in ballots since '96 or something like that. And so we've been doing a pretty good job until then.
Yeah.
But with the elections happening, questions arise.
Sure.
And now this is a good time to kind of talk about some of those. Let's talk first about the ballots themselves. And when they are created and printed and sent out, there are eyes at every level. Is that right? Looking and making sure everything is accurate. Everything follows along state guidelines. And I guess the question here is, there is the Mason County Auditor's Office, the Elections Department. They don't do a lot on their own. They follow strict guidelines. Absolutely.
In elections, there are really rules about everything. We use a printer in Everett, K&H, who produces 80% or so of the ballots in Washington State. So they understand our rules very carefully. They're really easy to work with and do a really nice job for us. But every step of the way, there are checks in place. We follow both statutes and rules. The Secretary of State's office is the Chief Elections Officer for the Secretary of State is the Chief Elections Officer for the state. And she gives us rules and guidelines so that the voter experience in Mason County is the same as it is in Spokane County and Asotin County, and everybody gets treated the same.
And so for a definition, Washington State is it mail-in state? Is it absentee state? What are the differences on those?
So for me, the difference between absentee and vote by mail is that in a normal, quote-unquote, normal environment with polling places, to be an absentee voter, you have to request a ballot, go through a process to say, I want to be a vote-by-mail voter. In Washington State, we skip that step, and every voter gets a vote-by-mail ballot in the mail automatically. So there is no request process.
So across the rest of the country, for example, is there a difference, or is it kind of just two descriptions of the same thing?
Every state has their own rules, and I don't think there are any two states that are exactly the same. Oregon was a couple of years ahead of Washington in adopting vote by mail. There, a ballot has to be back in the hands of an election official on election day for it to count. In Washington, postmarks count.
Okay.
And so it has to be postmarked and to us by certification. So no two systems are exactly alike. And I think one of the reasons that I feel better about the safety of elections is that there are about 8,000 election jurisdictions in the country. We all have our own systems. We tally ballots with using a system called Clear Ballot. Kitsap County uses a different system than we do. Thurston County uses another system. And so, the ability for somebody to get in and hack the election and change things, we are very decentralized. And, from a security standpoint, that's a very good thing.
Yeah, Fina, you mentioned that the tabulation machines are not even connected to the internet.
Yeah, and they are, and that's a standard, basically. So they are, they're all certified by the state before we're allowed to even, contract to purchase them. And then, yes, they're airlocked, which means, they're not connected to the internet at all.
So in our state, is everybody at 18 sent out a mail-in ballot, regardless of whether they requested it or not?
No, you have to register to vote to participate. Most people do that at the Department of Licensing when they're getting their driver's license. That's a question that you get asked is, are you a citizen and do you want to register to vote? So you still have to be a citizen to participate, and you have to essentially check the box yes, that you do want to be registered.
Yeah, we don't have automatic voter registration here. Other states, Oregon has that. I think one of the other is the different for vote by mail is that, there's a lot of call for people. Don't forget to request your absentee ballot. Make sure you request your absentee ballot. Request your absentee ballot right now, or your absentee ballot isn't safe, things like that. And so, in terms of Washington State, you don't have to request an absentee ballot, and it's already in the hopper for you. As long as you are registered to vote, we are going to send you one because we are vote by mail. So that's a big common misconception because so much of the news that we consume is on a national level, which so it has a lot of information that is not pertinent to our state.
One of the other things that you hear nationally is kind of the collection of ballots to then be sent to the auditor's office. Is there any Washington state laws against that or allowing that to collect? Like if I was going to go by and pick up all my parents' ballots or something like that.
Washington law is silent on that question, but we encourage people to only give their ballots to somebody that they trust. Treat it like you treat your rent check or your mortgage check. If I trusted Fina with my mortgage check to get that into the bank, then I would trust her with my ballot. But if I don't, I wouldn't.
Okay. When you look at the ballot and you're starting going down from the president down this year, and we've got a lot to vote on, if folks come across names or races that they're unfamiliar with at that time, or they don't feel comfortable voting in that, if they skip that person or skip that race, the rest of the ballot's still counted, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the great things about vote by mail is you don't have the pressure of being in a voting booth and something appears on the ballot that you weren't expecting, and you don't have the ability to research. I mean, we get our ballots 3 weeks in advance, and so people do have the ability to research. But if for whatever reason, whether they don't know or hate all the candidates, whatever that is, people can vote what they want and skip what they want, and the things that they vote on get counted, and the things that they don't vote on doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can leave anything, and we heard that's not the only reason, that we hear from people that they're concerned that we're going to throw away their ballot. They have lots of concerns like, they don't cross the T on their name, or they don't dot the I, or things like that, or they don't follow it perfectly, everything perfectly. So, yes, they can leave everything. They can vote for just one race. Certain people just only care about one race. And so we do see a lot of things on the ballots where people have made lots of marks to make sure that we don't not count their ballot. But, we're in, like I said, we're in the business of counting ballots, not in the business of not counting ballots. Right. So Washington is a voter intent state. We look, if you don't want to vote that race, you don't have to vote that race. If, you don't follow the instructions perfectly in terms of crossing out, it doesn't nullify your ballot. So we, basically we look, and if you know what we can determine what you want, we will count that. If it's if we can't determine it based on the rules that the state sets, which are set in Washington Code, then administrative code, then that's brought to the canvassing board, which is again the head of the county commissioners, the prosecuting attorney, and Paddy himself. And those are the ones who make the final decision at the end about what this will look like or what it won't. And that's only if it doesn't follow the specific rules.
And on the question of uniformity, the Secretary of State's office produces a manual that's 80 pages long on voter intent, on determining voter intent. And the idea being, again, that what a voter does in Mason County and what a voter does in Spokane County, if they both do exactly the same thing on their ballot, it's going to get treated exactly the same way in both counties. And that's obviously the way it should be.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the other kind of things people say when it comes to voter fraud, perhaps. They talk about dogs voting or dead people voting or two ballots voting and things like that. I was doing some reading, and I understand there's a lot of reports out recently that show the instances of voter fraud are very, very small. But you do hear these of, my Aunt Millie, somehow cast a ballot, or my little dog Johnny. Like that. How would that get through a system? And then what are the recourse for the folks who knowingly sent those ballots in?
Well, first, if you register your dog to vote, it's a felony. I mean, this is serious stuff. It's a felony. And, that to me is the biggest determinant. You swear an oath when you sign your ballot. It is a felony to lie. So, if I was to sign Bella McGuire for my dog, that would be a felony. And so, I think that is a pretty huge deterrent to people, particularly when 25% of eligible people aren't even registered to vote.
Yeah.
That to me is
that's a big for one vote. One vote in one election. Registering to vote, that would be, and then also voting once. And that would be and we have, 41,000 voters. So that would be in an election, 37,000 votes, and that a felony with a $10,000 fine to add one vote to your, So that's a pretty substantial penalty for something that, and every vote does count in terms of we count them all, but, we have had elections that are very close like that, but in terms of the kind of risk that you would be putting to make sure that you are actually making a difference in an election, even you'd be 10 felonies would still be only 10 votes,
Sure, sure.
So, it's taken very seriously.
So then, when it comes to those, and we've talked about how the system will go through and you put the ballot through the mail and it will flag something if perhaps it looks like you may have marked something different or put the lines out. Is that how it comes in those types of cases? Perhaps the animals would be a little tougher, but if it was a person and there is a deceased record, that should all show up within milliseconds now with the new state software?
Right, exactly. So the VoteWA, the state voter registration system, is linked to the State Department of Health. So vital statistics. It's also linked to the Social Security Death Index, which if somebody dies outside the state of Washington, when they file for death benefits under Social Security, or that gets recorded and the system gets flagged. We check obituaries regularly.
And we also participate in ERIC, which is a kind of a multi-state program. And so if somebody moves to another state and gets a driver's license, we get a record of that shows that they've moved that. So that, that happens. So we are all states sharing that. And that's not even just voter registration systems sharing across state lines. That's other state systems, So, if you're getting a driver's license in another state, they're letting us know that you have basically taken up residence in another state, and to get us to get that cleared up.
What's the line between somebody who's come to watch the process as a poll watcher versus someone here that looks to intimidate a voter? Now, I know that it's different here because our ballots come in the mail, whereas in other states there are actual polling places still. But you got to have those kind of considerations, right? If someone's standing within the new enclave at the elections office, or if they're just outside, and how do you deal with that?
So the old rules related to electioneering, campaigning at a polling place apply to vote centers too. And so when we transformed from polling place elections to having vote centers, you can't electioneer within 50 feet.
I'd have to look at that. I don't know that, yeah.
There is a zone outside our door. There's also a zone around ballot drop boxes. It's also a gross misdemeanor to do anything to intimidate people to keep them from voting. So, someone trying to block a drop box to keep people from voting, if somebody sees that happening, they should call the sheriff because it's illegal.
Sure.
Or call us, and we'll call the sheriff because it's illegal. So there is no history of that sort of thing here in Mason County, and we're happy about that. But tensions are pretty high this year, so it wouldn't shock me. It would disappoint me. It would not shock me if it happens here. But there are laws in place, and so we'll enforce those laws if we need to.
We just went and looked at the ballot box here in front of 411 North 5th Street to the side in the alley, and it's a great. I mean, it's very secure. It looks really good. There's 9 other of those throughout the rest of the county. Yeah. How confident are you guys in the folks? I mean, the security will be there. We've talked about that. But when it comes to the mail portion, we're hearing a lot about making sure that the mail is able to deliver in a timely fashion and get it back in a timely fashion and things like that.
In the last week, we are going to encourage people to use drop boxes rather than the mail. I mean, there is more uncertainty around the ability of the Postal Service to deliver on time to us than there ever has been in the past, and so we're going to encourage people to use drop boxes. The mail will still work, but if you use a drop box and drop it in the slot in one of our boxes, absolutely positively your ballot's in. If you put it in the mail, you're going to have to wonder whether a postmark gets applied on time and whether it gets to us on time. And the vast majority of those, it works.
Yeah.
100% of those in the drop box, it works. Yeah.
And we've been, once we started really kind of adding drop boxes and making sure that we were really, it was a slow process as we kind of added more and filled, so that they're really accessible by other people. We get our 64% of our ballots come back by, via the drop box, and that's been consistent, before. And we have always, not just right now, encourage people, especially, of course, get them in early. We always like that. And then also, as time comes on, to get them in the drop box. That also ensures that we will probably, because we pick those up, daily, especially in this election, that your ballot is going to be one of the ones that's counted on election night. If it comes in and, you get a postmark and we're not able, because we have such a volume at the end, that we're not going to be able to process it till, even if we get it on election day, we're not going to be able to process it till Wednesday or Thursday. I mean, certainly in the last election, we got so many ballots at the end. We were still, we will count your ballot, but maybe not, until Wednesday or Thursday or Friday. So if you want your number in on Tuesday. But yes, the drop boxes are solid, they're solid steel. And again, we have seals on them and we keep track of, who's even accessed them,
So there are 10 drop boxes all throughout Mason County to make sure that when you, on the 13th of October is when the ballots will be starting to mail out. So you got a couple days before it gets to you. And if if you get those back to those drop boxes as soon as possible, that's very important. Again, if you're going to put it through the mail, for example, one of the traditional blue mail slots, make sure you check on there the dates or the times of when the pickup is, because you want to make sure that they are postmarked by Election Day here for sure. Other question, and we talked about this for someone who maybe moved from a county to another county, where you may get a secondary ballot, but things happen. And what if you get two ballots to your primary residence with your name on them? How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So, we do have same-day registration now, which means people can, up to 8 days before the election, they can register, online, or, we can do it as long as we've received it through the mail. And then also, if they come into the office, we can make any changes and things, or register people. So, what that means is that, obviously we don't wait till Election Day to mail out the ballots. So if you move from another county and you move to our county, we could, we'll issue you a ballot for your new location, for your new address, and, eventually maybe through forwarding, your other ballot will arrive to you, or you have the same P.O. box or something like that. So it is possible, and, very likely, especially because so many people are registering right now, that you can get two ballots. So just be, it's okay. Don't worry. You only, in our system, you only have one ballot. Okay. And again, that's a statewide system. So I'm logging into the same system that Pierce County is or Clark County is. We're not looking at different things. So I can look in and I can see that you had a Pierce County ballot and it's been canceled, and that the ballot that we issued is the accurate ballot. So even if you vote that Pierce County ballot and returned it to Pierce County, they'll go, this ballot's no good, and they won't count it.
But only vote once.
But only vote
once. Because part of the oath that you are signing is that you have only voted one time in this election. And so if you do that twice, you are technically committing a felony in that you are swearing a false oath.
There's only a little caveat to that, because we do, if you've changed and you voted your first ballot and then you move, you are technically eligible to vote that second ballot because the first ballot is canceled. So it's a little confusing.
Well, plus too, some ballots county by county would have different measures, perhaps.
Yeah, because you're eligible for the new stuff.
Yeah. Well, even within Mason County, if you've moved within the county, you may
move
have
from
a different
congressional
ballot.
6th to congressional 10th.
Right.
And then one final thing, and we talked about it on security, but as the ballots are starting to get counted here, the 24-hour live stream does go up on the YouTube channel, so people will be able to come in remotely and watch all that's going on too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is, as a result of COVID, we redesigned our ballot processing room. We're having fewer people in here, spaced farther apart. And so one of the casualties of that is during this time, we're not going to be able to have observers here in the room with us. It's just physically not possible. So there will be 24/7 cameras in here accessible through our website at masoncountyelections.us. And so you can look online and see at 3 a.m. and see that there's nobody in here doing anything, or during the day that we're busy at work processing ballots. If people absolutely positively want to come see what's going on, we have a window. People can stand outside and look in and watch. If you're sitting at home watching on your computer, you won't get rained on.
Yeah.
So we would encourage that.
And then one final thing too, on the VoteWA website, you can kind of track your ballot process too.
Yes.
So
you
make
can
sure
see.
it's been counted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, as you know, Washington's been voting by mail for a long, long time, and great folks like Paddy and Fina here at the Mason County Elections Office have been doing their hard work to make sure it all runs smoothly, including this upcoming election in November. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Another thing that people are talking about now that the election is upcoming this November, and there's a lot of uncertainty too, is that folks are remembering a time when they would go in and cast a paper ballot and be able to see that. How does that work these days? I mean, we've been vote by mail here in the state for a few years now at least. are there still those opportunities, or are people encouraged to trust the system and do the vote by mail?
Yeah, I mean, we've been vote by mail for a long time, and certainly Mason County has been for 15 years. So people do remember, hey, I used to go out to the Bordeaux school and register out there. So, but we don't have poll sites anymore. They're not spread out all through the county. We do have a vote center, and that is here in downtown Shelton. And a vote center is very different from a poll site. A vote center is designed for you to come in, you can update your registration, you can get a replacement ballot. We can serve the whole county, as opposed to poll sites, which you had to go to the one that you were properly registered at. So we don't have, voting booths and voting machines, because we are vote by mail. So there is lots of information out in the national news right now where people are calling and saying, I want to vote in person, I want to come, I want to do it that way. They want to hand their ballot to us. And we have, like I said, been doing this for a long time. We're not a state that has had to quickly change their procedures to get it like that. So that's very good for us. That's very good for Washington that we have those opportunities. So if you come into our office and you say, I don't want the ballot that you've sent to my house, I want, a new ballot, I want to vote here, we're going to basically create a new ballot record for you. We're going to cancel that ballot that you have at home, and we're going to hand you the exact same ballot you have at home. You can fill it out in your car, and then you can drop it in a drop box. So it's no different really than, kind of what you would do, except you could do it at home. We do have a machine that is designed, that can be voted on. It's actually more just a machine that helps those with disabilities. We can you can listen to the ballot, you can make the print really large, things like that. So we have one of those in our lobby. And that's kind of designed for that. Sure. So that's kind of what it is. So it is very different, and we've been doing it a long time, and all our voters, for the most part, have been doing it a long time. It's just there's been some fear in kind of with the new things. So, yeah.
Makes sense when you kind of, we follow the national news. It's a national election here from the president down, and so there's a lot of those conversations. That makes a lot of sense. And two, like I've mentioned and we've mentioned, is Washington State for decades now have been under great purviews from the Secretary of States and the different auditors in the various counties, and so trust the system.
Yeah, and vote by mail is very safe. Yeah. It is very safe in terms of how it's handled. The ballots are handled centrally. They're mailed centrally. They're returned. We control the drop boxes. It's basically the drop boxes and the mail, and then it comes in and it's processed separately. It's not processed in all sorts of places all over the county.
Sure.
So, and you do have the ability to, vote at home, have time to research your topics, things like that.